My name is Bob Willmot. I was president of the Federation in 2000 and 2001. I became involved with Federation as a lay leader, I suppose, in the early mid-90s, and quickly became involved with allocations, chaired the allocations committee, became vice president after that, and then president. Came to Vancouver just a few months after Federation was formed. Came here to marry a woman who was on the board. They had initial board. So I came into a situation where I knew about it. I came from a community in Ottawa where Federation, as long as I ever knew, had been strong, had been accepted as the natural way to do things. And just seemed to me that as a way to become involved in the community as a layperson, Federation was the place I wanted to be. But I first came here and had contact with Federation in '87 when I was involved with the Canada-Israel Committee as their lobbyist and executive director. And I came here to work with community leaders, especially talk to some of the professionals. And so I met with Steve Drysdale at that time and was instantly made aware of the tensions and uncertainties and suspicions surrounding Federation's arrival on the scene or Federation's creation. I was intensely aware of it because some of the strongest fears and doubts about the legitimacy of Federation and what the creators were trying to do with Federation came from the people who had been very much involved in the lobbying work that I was doing. So that was sort of my initiation, even before I lived here, into some of the tensions. And then when I became involved with Federation, working particularly on allocations, trying to really change the allocations process. We can go into that a bit if you want, but there was a great deal of suspicion about what Federation was up to in trying to do this, and was this a power grab? Were we trying to push others out or trying to undermine what they were trying to do? And this was a lot more natural and understandable at the time than I at the time understood it to be. I really had trouble sort of understanding. To me, a Federation was natural. But to a lot of people, it wasn't then, and so we had to work with that and try to bring people along, and that was a huge challenge. And I think it's all gone now, but it was all there throughout the time when I was very involved with Federation. So for sure, it was us. That was the challenge. But what we were trying to do that mattered was move from a way of spending our money, the money that we raise as a charitable organization gets spent in the community in a whole lot of different ways. And the way it was allocated then, the way the decisions were made was the way it's always been done. So this school gets so much, that school gets so much, the JCC gets so much, the JFSA gets so much. If you raise a little more, you increase it all proportionately. But essentially, that's all it was. What we wanted to do, and I guess I think about this a lot because it was my initiative. I had to fight hard for it. Was to bring in much more of a planning element to it, to say how should we be spending it? How much should we be spending on Jewish education as opposed to poverty relief, as opposed to support for things that we were doing in Israel? All those different things. It was to sort of try to reach some sort of a consensus, not of everyone in the community, but at least amongst the major organizations and the leadership, about what we wanted to do, what was important. And that's partly for planning, but it was also partly so that we could account for ourselves, so that we could say to all of the donors, big and small, this is how your money is being spent. Not in the sense of it's going to this school or to this building, but it's going to this purpose. It's going to, this much is going because of poverty, particularly among seniors. This much is going for education. This much is going, and so on. That's what we were trying to do. And because it was inherently leading to change, it was very frightening for lots of people who, again, saw it as, are we trying to take away their power? Are we trying to separate them from their traditional donors, and so on? And it was a long struggle. I think it really only took root, solid root, when the campaign grew. And suddenly Federation was recognized as not someone that's going to take away, but someone who's going to give us a lot more. And that's when people became much more comfortable. I mean, we had made the changes before then, but they were only really accepted, I think, once the campaign took off. I'm most proud of the work that we did to introduce planning and program thinking into the way that we allocate the funds that Federation raises in the community. Okay. Another thing I'm proud of is something that I did in the first year after I was president, when I co-chaired and led the search for a new executive director that led to Mark Gervis coming here. That was a major, major development in our community, having Mark. I don't know anyone who would disagree with that statement. And I feel I had a major role in making it happen. We're much more united than we were. I think there is much more cross-pollination, much more working together amongst community leaders, lay people and professional. There's much more coming to Federation to seek advice and getting involved and consensus building amongst different organizations, and you know what, this isn't for us to do, this is for them to do, let me call that person. And I think that happens all the time. And that leads to a lot of collaboration. I'm not a Pollyanna about this. We are a community. We're not just a Jewish community, we're a community, and all communities have conflicts and divisions and suspicions. But we have far more working together, far more collaboration and cooperation than we did back then. There's far less suspicion amongst organizations and amongst the leadership of those organizations. Far less siloing of people's involvement. People tend to move from one to another much more easily than they did before. Not everyone, obviously, but lots of people do. Much more cooperation and collaboration than there was. And that's pretty important in the development of a community. I think any community needs to have ways of doing things as a community, ways of doing things together, of raising the resources or acquiring the resources. It needs to do things together, deciding together what to do with those resources, trying to figure out how to meet new challenges. And our community faces lots of new challenges and has over this time. As we age, as living in this city becomes so expensive, and moving into the city, if you're from outside or you're young, is almost impossible without parental support. Federation is the organization in our community that is able to do that. I don't mean solve the problems, but get people to work together, to make decisions together, to take action together. And that's why I think it's important to support Federation. I continue to support Federation and always will.